why do you think your brand popped off? I guess
Because it's sick.
All good?
All right, yep.
See you later, boys.
Yep. See you there.
Are we eating at Native? Yeah.
We're going to have a little bit of food, have a chat about what we're going to do.
Perfect.
All good.
All right.
Why can't flights just be like this?
And just like, oh, what's this about? Just another message in.
Just clocking out.
How about that?
I actually didn't fall asleep then.
I'm comfy. Don't look.
Mate, look out.
How you doing, bro?
Hiya.
What's getting on, mate? Good?
Yes.
Good, bro.
Yes,
Nice to see
of
you.
course.
Likewise.
I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the current running order of the questions now is pretty good because it starts off like about the brand and then
Yeah, I mean, starts at the beginning, really.
yeah, talks about Manchester, like how sick it is that End was open in Manchester, what it means for us.
Okay,
and then,
that bit's quite brief, to be fair.
yeah,
It's just,
and then obviously the End partnership.
Let's go, baby.
hello, sir. How you doing? See you. Looking well. You too? You good? Hello? You alright?
How you doing?
Welcome to an evening with Represent, courtesy by N Clothing. I firstly want to introduce myself. I'm John. I work for the company. And this is Sam, who works for High Snobiety as an editor. And obviously, George and Mike Heaton.
First of all, thank you everyone for coming out to join us today. We're basically just gonna, talk through the brand. Got some specific questions for George and for Mike. So they're just gonna, walk us through the ins and outs of what makes Represent and why it's so popular, why you're all here today, basically. For me, I think some of my earliest memories of the brand, is, something like the wax jackets and your like first biker jeans and stuff. And obviously, in the past decade, you've come a long way. Things have changed pretty significantly. But going back to those formative years, how did you kind of first establish what Represent would be and what it would look like? And then obviously going forward, how that began to evolve within your own minds?
I think back then it was hard because we didn't have an identity. And like, we probably spent the first 6 years of the brand trying to figure out who we were and like what the brand was. And we were growing up, we were like teenagers. So we were just making shit that we thought was cool. We were just making screen printed t-shirts and obviously said them wax jackets then. I forgot about them. Fuck. There's actually a funny story about them. So that like we'd done a few screen printed t-shirts, like 50, 100 and then 150. And I wanted to move my production to Britain. I wanted everything to be made in England at the time. Just thought it was really cool. We're a British brand. There weren't many like streetwear brands back then that were like supporting Britain, supporting British made. Thought it was really cool. Found this factory, wanted to use British fabrics. So like the wax fabric was from Millerain, which is like one of the only UK cotton suppliers. And the bill for the jackets was like 12 grand and I had 7 grand. So I actually asked my dad if I could borrow some money. And he was like, yeah, if you pay me back. So I remember launching them and it was on my sister's birthday. So we were like out for dinner and the revenue was like 8 grand. So I was like, okay, we can nearly pay my dad back. And it was decent. So I started paying him back like £1 a week, brought the revenue back up to whatever it was and paid him back. And then started getting emails from every single customer saying like, these jackets were called Built to Last. They actually called them that because I was like, right, British manufacturing is going to be fucking amazing. And there was a problem with the wax on the fabric that when it scratched together, it came off, and the factory didn't do tests on it. So every single jacket I had to refund, and I think we'd sold like 320 across the whole line over like a month, and everyone started realizing after a few wears. So I lost everything.
Built to last.
And it was called Built to Last, yeah. I don't know if any of you remember them jackets, but they were. Did you really? Did it happen to yours? Didn't wear it.
You definitely like wore it once. Took a picture in it and never wore it again.
Yeah. It was fucking devastating, but look, you live and learn, don't you?
No, absolutely. I mean, Mike, from your perspective, obviously being more on the graphic side of things and like the visual identity of the brand, what was it like just trying to put that together in the early stages, like, you know, first ideas and stuff?
If you think about when it really started, I guess it was kind of in school for us. Like we always wore like different things to the other kids in there, listened to different music. Like I'd sit around all day watching like Scuzz and Kerrang on TV, and I just wanted to dress like them people that I saw. It was always like baggier fitting stuff and like skate shoes and more like streetwear-y kind of aesthetics. And I think when we started designing like our first ever stuff, we kind of, that's what we was into at the time, weren't it? Like Stussy, Diamond, Obey.
Yeah, definitely. We would sit on YouTube every night and watch like what Nicky Diamonds was up to and what the guys in Supreme was up to. And obviously we come from up north, up here. School wasn't that. It was tracksuits and skinheads. Like we looked so different. We had long fringes and people shouted shit at us. But yeah. But that was like the aesthetic of the brand. That's how it grew. Like we have that American look.
I think as well, like if you look back at the design language back then, like even the logo, it was very like streetwear-esque. It was like, I think it was, what was it? Arial, bold, italic, no spacing, just very like impactful.
Yeah.
Bosh. How did you think like your transition from, I suppose, like, you know, early bird brand to like a big one?
We hired a guy that would eventually cut our patterns because we didn't know what they were doing. We're graphic designers by trade. And we just wanted to make everything long and baggy, and like we did leather.
Those long line tees were elite.
Illegally
iconic,
long. So we got all this production made of this long stuff, and we looked like nightmares in it. I think there's some pictures of, where's Steph? Dude, them pictures in Paris. We had these like big scoops that were like down here, but at the time it looked so different to what everyone else was doing. So like we just went to Paris for Fashion Week for no reason. We couldn't show anyone anything, and everyone just was asking where the fuck we got our clothes from. So it was like a good thing. It was like it to us. It was like, right, this is actually going to start trending, and it really did. There was quite a lot of like UK and American brands that were doing that back then at the time, and it was when like ADYN was around and Jerry Lorenzo just started Fear of God. He was doing a similar thing, and that really boosted our profile and gave us a bit of an image of what the future was for us.
I think anybody that's working in fashion, has worked in fashion, there's this kind of idea that you can't build anything outside of London, that London's kind of, you know, is the center point of fashion in this country. And do you think there's been any kind of challenges that you've faced building the brand outside of London? And, you know, is that just a myth?
I think, yeah, in the early days is when you're building a brand and you're on the outskirts of what that is, and people don't know your brand, then yeah, it's going to be a challenge. If you're trying to bring in talent that have no clue who you are, it'll be a challenge. But luckily we built a brand that like people want to be in. Like people see the team and they want to fucking join it. Like we have absolutely zero problem getting people in. Like it's a fest when we put a fucking job offer out. It's amazing. And I think as well as since like what happened with the pandemic, people don't necessarily need to live in London. And there's a lot of talent in Manchester, and you can grow your own talent, right? Like we're just kids that drew on fucking pieces of paper. Like you can grow with brands, you can develop yourself, and yeah, there's talent everywhere, I think.
Absolutely. And like the upside to that as well is like you get to, I don't know, you keep yourself to yourself in Manchester. Like we don't even have good weather, so there is literally no distractions.
So obviously, you know, we're in End right now, and this is the first Manchester store, which is a big thing within itself. This is part of like a ongoing partnership that you guys have had with End, obviously, like with Owners Club and everything. So how did the partnership come together, and kind of how has it developed since, you know, the first exclusive collection that you put out?
Yeah, I mean, John, you can help me with this, but I think we launched the Raptor with them as like the first store to actually receive that shoe, and they put it in their launches app and it sold out. And I know that Christian, noticed it, and there was a lot of people in the office back then. I think that was like 2 or 3 years ago. They were saying like, "Oh, what's this Represent brand? Why is it getting searched so much on the store? Why is the product release sold out straight away?" So it created a bit of a buzz within End, and we were like really grateful for that. So we wanted to actually build, because previous to that, we'd never really built big relationships with stores, and because we're like predominantly an online brand. So it was kind of like a foot in the door and a realization of what we can do and how we can get more customers and not just keep repeating to the same people that we sell to anyway. And after that, we did like a little campaign up at our office with them. They shot us in our studio. We revealed what our like HQ looked like, and then launched a collection with that. And since then, we've just been doing quite a few SMUs. John handles all that kind of stuff.
Especially now, I say like modern Represent, like the past maybe like 5 or so years, the idea of like British made luxury has been like a massive part of the brand identity. It's something that's, it's all over the site and any comms you put out and stuff. So how would you personally define what that kind of luxury is, and how do you feel that Represent has kind of put that out into the world and added into the luxury space?
I feel like luxury can be defined through product and not price point. So like our mission has always been to create the best fucking product we can, but still be able to offer that at a price point that is obtainable. And like, that's where I see as like a modern luxury. I don't want to be sat there up at the top with Bottega and Amiri, but I want the quality of the product to be up there with Amiri and Bottega and all them Saint Laurent, everything like that. We strive to use the same fabrics, the same factories, the same everything that them kind of brands do, but we want to offer product that is like affordable. Like it needs to be in reach of people who align with what the brand is and are them customers. And I don't want to lose the customers from 6, 7, 8 years ago that grew up with the brand. Like I want everyone to be on this journey with us because we're the customer basically. Like we've grown up with the brand. I'm not here to think, okay, we were doing really well now, let's go and put our prices up. It's not about that for us. It's about like maintaining the greatness of what the product is at the price point. And I don't think there's any other brand, especially in the menswear market, that's able to do that.
I mean, within that, is there any kind of key moments or even products that you can kind of look back on? So I mean, for me, I feel like it was around about 2013, 15 when full collections really started to become a thing, and there was a much more distinct visual identity from like campaigns, lookbooks, and everything. So I kind of look at that point. But is there anywhere particularly that you would be like, right, that's when we started really striving towards luxury and really evolving what the brand is, and developing towards what you've had like in your heads the whole time?
I mean, we always thought luxury meant being made here, being made in Italy. But we actually moved a lot of our production as we grew into Portugal and realized like that's where a lot of these major brands are able to produce at such high volumes but such great quality. And I think that was 2018 that we started that transition. It took like a year and a half, went through hell with it, but like that there was a massive turning point for the brand. And like everything you see everyone wearing here is from that transition. Like no one's really got anything on that's older than that. And I feel like the product wasn't perfect then, and now it feels like it's nearly perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see it. I mean, there's pieces that I remember so vividly from back then, and I think, like you say, even just the factor of things lasting as long, and you can feel the quality when you put things on. I think you've really put a lot of time and just listening to feedback and stuff to be able to get to that point. And I think it's shown on social media. You're obviously very active on your socials and on Rep as well, with doing Q&As and just hearing what people have to say. How important has that been for you, like on this journey, and making sure you get the brand to where you want it to be?
For me, that's like 50% of my day. Like I'll interact with everyone that I can to understand feedback, to understand how people perceive the product, how it fits, what we need to do better, what we don't need to do better, what direction we need to go in when it's style. Like I don't want to just follow trends. I want to know what our customers want, what they find is missing, because that might not always be the same as what internally we all discuss and think is the right plan. So that's just why I'm so active on there, because that is like my number one feedback loop. There's no better feedback than your own customer, right? and I don't want to try and attack different markets just yet. Like I want to grow the one we have.
What made you start 247?
I mean, it was just a lifestyle change. Like at the start of the first lockdown we went into, me and Mike were just like, fuck it, let's just train and work and train and work and train and work. And it just became like a thing where we'd wake up, train in the morning, go for a hike, come back, work on designs. But when we're on them hikes, that's when our ideas were coming. So we'd be like up the top of Rivington thinking, dude, why is there not a pant that we've done that's going to take us up Rivington every day, but then we can just fucking work in it after it? Where is that pant for us? And that's how the 247 pant came about. So we put that out first. And it wasn't really meant to be a collection after that. It wasn't meant to go down that training route. It was just the pant. And because it did so well, like I think it was the most reactive product we've ever done by a fucking long while. And it just made us realize that there was something we could do within the brand where we could expand the wardrobe that we were selling to. And like, I'd look at the brand myself and think, here's my wardrobe, here's my gear for going out, here's my gear for going to the office, here's my gear for working out. And I want all of it to be represent, like, because that's my life and that's what I want the customer's life to be. So I wanted to make that full transition into activewear. And I know it's only young and we've probably only been doing it a year and a half now and there's not much of a team for it, but that's a big passion of mine and I do want to build that thing out.
Sure. Like, I mean, there's been a lot of like 247 and also like Blanks and Owners Club. You've had like a lot of different points of entry to the brand. Has that been kind of like an active thing that you guys have thought about? Like, okay, how are we gonna, give people that maybe aren't into like fitness or, if 247 is not necessarily for them, they might not be into like graphic tees, just having those different points of entry. Is that something you've like consciously considered as you're building those up?
I think so, yeah. But also like the Owners Club thing came about because like our family were fanatical about cars. Like my mum, my dad, my granddad, his granddad, they were all in the car trade. And we've always been inspired by British car manufacturers, as you all probably know. Bit obsessed. But so that came about because we'd always get old magazines from like car shows, and Mike thought one day, like, these guys at a car show go and, like, they meet up, they make a community based on that brand of that car. Why the fuck does no one do that with clothes? Like, why can't we do that in our brand? And then them meetups are always called an Owners Club. So there'd be like a Rolls Royce Owners Club. So we thought, right, let's do a Represent Owners Club. And I remember when you did the graphic and it had wings on it and stuff, and then we just made it really simple. And I had the upper hand because of the 247 pant that year. And that fucking shit launched and it just went fucking crazy. And probably the best day in the brand's history, really. And like a new level of knowing what we could do and and what our customer wanted from us. So we've just like slightly developed that range out, but it's still, I'd say it's the core range of the brand. It's the basic stuff. It's what everyone goes to when they're new to the brand. It's not necessarily the be all and end all for the more fashion people. But it's great quality product and it's got a cool print on it. And for me, it like makes me feel like when I see people in it, they're part of the club, and I love that shit.
Yeah, something for people to buy to feel like they're part of our community. And it's funny as well because like that whole idea of Owners Club and like people meeting up to share and talk about this cars that they have a passion for. We actually do get DMs, don't we, all day, every day, of people who stop and see each other in it and then get a photo with someone and then send it us. So it kind of does work in that way as well, which is really weird.
I mean, how does that feel for you, having, designed some of those graphics and stuff, to then see something become such an integral part of the brand where people are using that to identify one another?
It feels good to see it everywhere. I mean, at first we didn't really kind of know what it was. We didn't know whether people were feeling like that, like they're part of something, or whether it was just a way, it was just like our logo tee that people wanted.
I think something I found particularly interesting when, checking out your stories and stuff on occasion when they're popping up is the footwear design. Obviously that's something you're very passionate about and you're leading on that.
Yeah.
I mean, working with like sneaker releases and news all the time within my job, I see a bit of like the behind the scenes of things. And obviously there's a lot of research and development and huge cost that goes into creating footwear. Like it's a very difficult thing to do. So what are kind of some of the challenges that you've faced in that? And, you know, what was it like designing the first shoe versus now when you've got several different styles available?
Still just as hard. Yeah, still just as hard. I think there's two things that are the real big costs in this. And one, obviously, is like a full size run of molds. So if you want to design something from the ground up and you want to start with the sole unit, I mean, we just did the Viper and that was 40 grand's worth of tooling just for the sole unit. But I'd say the biggest cost of anything is time, the time it takes, because like a lot of, especially like as everyone knows, fashion and trends change in that year, and like you just have to make sure that what you're getting into is the right thing, and what you're designing is like more of a timeless thing than just looking at a trend.
Yeah, so like tell us a little bit more about the Raptor, because like, you know, I think, you know, you mentioning time, I can remember like when I came to the showroom one time and I asked like you, George, I was like, how long did it take for Mike to do this?
It's always more than a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that for me, I remember I was wearing like Geo baskets at the time, and I collected like an archive of skate shoes that I used to wear, and I just thought one day, we're in LA, weren't we? I think you'd gone out on a night out, left me at home. So I was
Don't put this shit on my story.
I was sat in with the iPad, and I was just thinking, like, I wonder what those two worlds would look like if they came together. And I remember just sat there, like, trying to fit the words rep onto the side of a shoe. And it actually ended up making some pretty cool paneling that, like, colorway really easy.
It's weird because people still don't see it, but it's so obvious.
Once you see the fact that it says rep, you can't unsee it, can you?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was...
I think that was the first shoe that really fucking took off for us. Like, we've been doing shoes for 5-6 years and we failed every single time. Like, we never really had... Well, I'm lying. We had hits. We did like the Dust boot and the Chelsea boot, which fucking drilled out, but we never really had consistency with it. And that was the first shoe in recent years that like just became huge for us.
Like the Raptor came out as a high, didn't it?
It did,
yeah, it did.
Yeah. That's what we released with End. But yeah, going back to the R&D, I think the biggest thing is like, you know, knowing that just because like you can design something that looks sick on a 2D CAD does not mean that once it turns into some like a 3D object, it's going to come back looking right. It's like I don't want to put a dampener on it, but it's quite demoralizing, the first round of samples.
You were just saying that you have like your archive of like skate shoes and stuff, and I think there's a lot of people within the Represent community that have been collecting your graphic tees, especially. You know, there was definitely a really strong period where it was almost like every other week there was a new design was coming out and people were going absolutely crazy for them. Did it get to a point where you were actively kind of trying to create designs that you thought people would want to collect and, you know, might just build up an archive of their own in the way that you've done the shoes?
It started when we went to LA in, was it 2016? We were looking around the shops there, realized it was a different culture, realized that there were shops that sold vintage tees. And then you could go to places like, you could go and get them on a wholesale. You could pick them up at like, what was it called, that wholesale place?
Rose Bowl.
Yeah, or Rose Bowl, yeah, or flea markets. So I collected like a load of t-shirts back then and brought them back over to the UK and just was like obsessed with like the distressing and the fade of the t-shirt, the wash, and then started paying more attention to the graphics on the t-shirt. It was very like what I was into at the time, like 80s sort of rock. And I remember going into designing it thinking like, is this the right thing to do? Because, you know, am I just following something that I'm into and it's going to be a bad move for the
We hadn't done anything like that before, had we? So it was a bit of a shock that when we actually put it out that people wanted it.
But I think it wasn't. It didn't matter that it weren't what the brand looked like previously. I think it was the attention to detail and the graphic that you'd put on that thing, and the amount of like washing and testing and everything that had gone into the t-shirt, and then the fit of the t-shirt and the fabric. I think that whole combination just really sparked everyone's interest, and like people would buy the first one, and then
So it was during lockdown, wasn't it? We released them, and
people got addicted to it.
Yeah,
like it was fucking wild.
Will be good to know like which one is your like favorite design. Spirit Reaper in it, probably. Yeah, I think for me, like I had a Metallica t-shirt that I found that was like some crazy all over thing, like front and back, and that kind of pushed me to like design bigger. So that one for me was like the pinnacle, I think, of that. Before obviously collaborating with artists in that genre of music.
Yeah, that Motorhead one you did is my favorite.
Yeah, I think I agree actually. Obviously, those within themselves are huge. Like those are not small achievements for you guys to have put together. Like, what was that process like to connect with those bands and do stuff? Because I mean, there's people that are probably looking for tees like that for years and years and years.
Yeah. So everything that I'd collected involved those bands that came to us as well, and like
still get it now. Like their managements all fucking reach out all the time. Like, can you do something with us?
Like even the Liam Gallagher one, man, that took years to come in fruition.
Yeah. We wanted that for years. We wanted that before any of the old rock stuff. And it just never happened. And then one day it was just like, do you want to do this? And then a week later we had the pop-up in Manchester, and he was playing Nebworth at the same time. It was like a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, he was actually,
yeah.
But he did a gig the day before that we went to. But yeah, back to the original question. I think just lockdown, eyes on the brand, one thing selling out naturally drove that collector's item culture. Yeah.
Kind of like the perfect storm. Do you think there's been like any other moments like that? You know, doesn't need to be anything recent. Just at any point in the brand's history where it's just been like everything's just lined up at the perfect time, and you've just kind of stood back and be like, yeah, this is working.
We're still waiting for it.
Dusk boot.
Key moments, yeah. Probably the Dusk boot back in the day. The Chelsea boot was crazy for us. And even before that, like the skinny denim jean. Like we were 90% black denim jean sellers at one point. We couldn't fucking sell anything else.
I probably bought like 20 pairs
myself.
I'll bet you, like, if you're like a real OG Represent customer, you've owned a pair of bikers. I am sure.
What direction do you see yourselves going in next, and what does the next 10 years of Represent look like?
I don't know what tomorrow looks like.
Boom.
Nah, to be fair, like, we're in this for the fucking long game, and we know there's so much untapped potential. Like, we've not even explored women's, we've not explored kids, with fucking 1% accessories. Our footwear line could be so much bigger and better and more beautiful, and just, I get into the office every day and I'm just like, this is fucking mint. Like, I went to Portugal last week with all the product team. Like, I was like nearly crying. I was so fucking happy with what we're doing. And like, compared to going in the previous years and having nightmares and trying to learn things and understand things, I feel like now is the time when things are kind of falling into place. And obviously there's still fucking shitloads more to do, and you got to have the humility for that, but it's working at the moment.
See, I mean, unless there's anything else, John, you wanted to touch on there specifically?
No, I think that's probably a good way to end it.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you everyone for coming down, and all the team that's come as well.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Thanks, boys.
Yeah, and I think I speak for everyone when I say thank you guys for
thank you,
sitting here. And
also, thank you, Ed. Shout out to Ed.
How was that?
I wasn't that bad actually.
I'm going to be a massive fangirl. Can I have a photo?
Oh, she can. Just a fiver.
Just a fiver.
Nice fit. Fucking sick, bro. Alright. Clocking out. Oh yeah, is that the end of the bit?